We're back! Hey y'all, my name is Sarah and I just love to talk about movies. And today we're finally going to talk about The Nun 2. Now, I made a video about The Nun a while ago. I think it's got to be a couple months ago. There are going to be spoilers in this video because there's no way to discuss it without them. I'm sorry, and I have to talk about it. In this version, they basically fixed all the things that I complained about in my last video. The Nun is about a young nun who at this point is like fully a nun, is serving in a different convent in a different part of Europe now, and is just going through her normal routine when word comes through to her, and I'm skipping a lot, I'm skipping the very beginning, when word comes through to her that there have been some deaths, some horrifying deaths at different churches across Europe, and that she is being tasked specifically to investigate the phenomenon. Irene is basically on the trail of these deaths, starting with the most recent and working her way back. She's joined by another nun, played by Reid, who plays Sister Debra, new nun, still not quite, fitting in, smoking cigarettes and whatnot, talking back to the nuns. But the story of Irene's experience in the other convent has managed to make it around. Father Burke didn't make it. He died. He was out. Boom. Gone. You might as well. So the only two characters that we've met before are Maurice and Sister Irene. Irene is working her way through the previous locations where the deaths occurred and has her, senses attuned to see if she can identify any clues that were missed, doing her research and finding out that Maurice has previously worked or visited those places, and that during the last encounter with the nun, a part of the demon managed to escape into Maurice, and he's been carrying it with him ever since. Instead of it seeming random that these specific people have been attacked, it's very personal, it's very specific. Instead of it seeming random that it's these, churches across Europe, it's places where Maurice has worked as he's been traveling over all this time and ending up where he is now, which used to be a monastery. Because why there? That's something that I think about when I watch movies, like, why there? What is so special about this place? Is it because it's spooky and weird and it's in an isolated location? Here you get answers to those questions. Maurice is working at what used to be a monastery and is now a boarding school. I guess it would be a boarding school for girls. I appreciate that we get to see kids being kids in this boarding school. It's all girls school, so them playing pranks, them annoying the teachers, them being in places where they shouldn't be, as kids do. And I appreciate that because it makes them feel more like kids, kind of unpredictable. Maurice crushing on one of the teachers, which is cute, and the teacher having a daughter that goes to the school, which feels very authentic to her character than like a single woman of childbearing years during this time period in history, just working in an isolated location at a boarding school for girls. It feels like if that was the case, it would be for reasons that are much more complicated. But her being there with her daughter gets a chance to get a quality education, and they're in Europe. But that feels more like a valid reason for her to be there in this situation. So Maurice is totally unaware. That also answers another question. He is completely out of the loop. He has no idea that this thing is inside of him. And the deaths had occurred within the time frame that he was there. The stakes are super high. It's a bunch of kids in the school. In the meantime, Irene is getting all of these mixed messages and all of these mixed signals and is trying to discern the next steps to take and they end up finding out through research and conversations with other people, which to me makes the biggest difference in a movie like this, where you're talking about history, you're talking about figures in history, like religious figures. Having context, having a point of contact is so important. So when they were in France and they went to visit that, I think they were in France, and they went to visit Irene's contact at the library, who would be able to pull up more information when they provided him with the names and locations and whatnot. It feels much more realistic. They leave the library and immediately travel to the boarding school. And that's where Irene sees Maurice for the first time in years, and she confronts him. It provokes the demon. It knows why she's there. She knows why it's there. And the chase is on to find this thing, to find that golden ticket. So the kids being terrorized makes sense. It's a distraction, not just hoo-ha-ha for the sake of hoo-ha-ha. It's to keep them busy, to keep them distracted, so that they don't find the thing before the demon does. Where they found it, who found it, which was very touching and convenient. But, you know, we're coming to the very end. All the questions we're getting answers for, and it's all coming together. In the previous film, they managed to defeat the demon because they find a chalice that has the blood of Jesus Christ in it, and Irene sprays the demon with the blood. In this version, they rely on the good old power of faith to turn the wine, which the monastery used to be a winery, so to turn all of the wine into the blood of Jesus Christ through their prayer and faith, and that is what helped defeat the demon. It was very touching. I get the relation. The whole winery thing, they kept coming back to that detail about it being a winery. What are in these barrels? It used to be a winery where the monks drunk all the time. Like, all these jokes and references to the winery. So I knew that for some reason it was going to come back into the story. But that being the key to helping them defeat the demon was a very interesting and specific detail, and honestly something I hadn't seen before in a horror movie. Instead of relying on a talisman or a scroll or eyes to do the work for you, going back to basics. So the confrontation happens, the demon loses, the good guys win, but not really. There's like this confrontation between Irene and Debra and the demon and Maurice and Kate, the mother, and Sophie, and then that's it. Maurice ends up leaving with Kate and Sophie, which is super cute. So there are a few unanswered events. It's a bunch of dead, that died in horrifying ways. In some cases, them taking their own lives. Priests, nuns across Europe. Is no one gonna tell the family about this demon that's been hunting them? Nobody's gonna mention it. No one's gonna hey, we should notify the family from this particular bloodline that y'all need to watch out and y'all need to keep the full armor up. Nobody's gonna do that. Nobody's gonna explain to the family why this happened. Nobody's gonna do that. I'm sure they'd get it, considering their origin story and what drove them out of their community and the circumstances in which that happened. That and the delivery girl who gets it. Who answers for that? Nobody? She's just gone? She's like one of those orphan kids that just picks up coal or does deliveries or, cleans up behind somebody that nobody cares about, that could just disappear and nobody cares. Who's gonna answer for that? Because her sequence took so long. It was several minutes of her walking down the street with the groceries, knocking on the door, nobody answering, hearing noises, who's there, jumping when the kids prank her and hit the windows or whatever, trying to get her to drop this bottle of olive oil or something. And then her death took a long time. So the fact that it was like, ooh, she's dead, and then nobody finds her body, there is like no burial ceremony for her. There are connections between these events and then the events in The Conjuring with the Warren couple. I mean, we know from watching The Conjuring, which I don't know if you watched it, but if you did, you know that there is a video that they show during one of their presentations of them trying to perform an exorcism on Maurice. I think they reference it in another movie too, how it was unsuccessful. So Maurice got like 3 separate times and, you know, dies from being afflicted. There are some unanswered questions here, but they kept the story moving really fast. They answered questions. Hey, where's Father Burke? He's dead? Okay, moving on. Does Irene still have spidey senses? Yes, she does. And we get a better idea of what that looks like in this version. So the story moves quick. And it is long, but it doesn't feel long because they fill up the world more that they're building. You know, you get to see Maurice at work and the friendships that he's made and him interacting with people. So you get to see Madame Laurent, I think her name is, who runs the place. And you get to see all the kids and who's the bullies, who are little minions and whatnot. You know, you get to learn more about the history of the building because to me, when you have settings, locations in places like Europe, there is history there. It's never just somebody built this building and we're the first people who've ever lived here. It's never that. Having a bit of backstory about what it used to be and then what it became after that and then what it is now is always great details to add without going into it too much. It's a lot of like stuff that just tick the boxes right away. First of all, the very beginning, they build tension much more skillfully in this version. The stakes are way higher in this version, and it's much better organized. They hold the twists until the very last second and then let them go, and then they hold the twists in and then let them go. This story took several turns that felt like it was really creating more to the universe of The Conjuring. Now, stories like Annabelle with the 6 movies, I don't know if it's 6. Some of the stories just meandered and didn't really add more to the canon of Annabelle. They're just horrifying events that seem to happen near or around, but like without any like true revelations that you're learning. In The Nun, there are some very critical revelations for minor and major characters. We're bringing back Frenchie and we're bringing back Sister Irene with a few new characters. In the other movie, they were just like slapping things together and hoping that they worked. In this one, there's much more detail and many more layers and thematic elements in the story. I would give The Nun 2 3 out of 5. It's not a big cast, but there are a lot of characters in it, so it's hard to kind of feel connected to any one person besides Irene and Maurice, who are in the previous film. So I would give it a 3 out of 5. I would recommend it too. It has action, horror, has a few thrills in there, but you guys let me know what you think. If you thought this version was a big improvement like I did, please let me know. Thank you for spending your time here with me today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.